All right, what's going on, guys? So listen up. I wanted to take a moment and we're going to take a deep dive into the VA home loan. And for all you veterans out there, thank you for your service. I appreciate it. It means a lot to me and to this country. So we appreciate your service. And I do want to take a moment just to dive into the VA home loan and dispel some of the falsehoods of it and to give more information so that we really understand how it goes. So like I said, it's going to be a very deep dive, and I'm going to cover some things that we even talk about how a lot of things that people don't even know about the VA loan. So we're going to go over some of those things. So, first to begin, just because a lot of people have questions about it, exactly what is a VA loan? They've heard of it. They're like, hey, it's just for veterans. Well, what is it? So essentially, a VA loan is a guaranteed loan for those who have served, and essentially that is backed by the government, okay? And so as a lender, it makes sense that, as a mortgage lender, this would be one of the greatest programs or one of the best options to have because the government is backing the loan. Okay, and so what does that mean when they say that it's backed? It's essentially that if there is foreclosure, the guarantee takes the place of the down payment. So therefore, the VA loan will, in place of your down payment, you don't have to pay a down payment because it's backed by the government. So that's a huge benefit for veterans. Okay. And so it's a pretty good service. I know, some people out there, and even lenders, everyone be talking, and they say that, it's a hard loan to do. Some people shy away from it. It's crazy because, there's even some realtors and even some loan officers who have never did a VA loan, which is, it might be the market, whatever the case is. But the VA loan is a very, very great product. And, for the most part, if a lender is familiar with the product, you should have it without a hitch. So I'm going to go in further. So when we talk about, who is eligible for the VA loan, I'm actually going to put the link in there. And so on there, you're looking at those who are active duty service members. You have veterans with discharges other than dishonorable discharge, National Guard, Reserve Service, veterans with honorable discharge, certain eligible spouses. So you even may be eligible for that. And then also on there, informed of, you also may be eligible for loan guarantee benefits. So down below in the comments, I'm going to put the link where you can actually click on the full list of people to see who's eligible for it. So once again, if you know anyone who is a veteran and is looking to purchase, wants to purchase, even not just their first home, but we'll get to that later, but even their second home, additional home, listen, share the link, show the video as we dive in even deeper. And so with the VA home loan, there is typically what's called a VA funding fee. Okay. And so most veterans, depending on your loan amount, depending on your eligibility, that funding fee can change. It can vary. It could be thousands of dollars on the VA funding fee. But what does that mean? So all that means is, for example, if you have a loan and you're qualified at $500,000 and the funding fee is just going to be added in the financing of that $500,000. So if your funding fee is $5,000, then that funding fee is going to be added into the financing of that. You don't have to pay that out of pocket. It's added into that. And so there are some situations where that can be waived. You can waive that funding fee can be waived depending on some circumstances, situation. And I'm going to put the link in there for that too. Down below is also going to be the link to see if you're eligible to waive that fee. But there's nothing you have to come out of pocket. However, what a lot of people don't know is that you can actually pay that funding fee up front if you want, if you don't want to finance. But what people don't know is that you can actually have the seller pay it. You can get a gift to pay the funding fee so you don't have to finance that. So there's other options on there to help compensate for that. I know one of the things as far as to get that waived, Some of the list is, for example, veterans that are receiving VA compensation for service-connected disability, you can get that waived. Unmarried surviving spouse of veterans who died in active service, you may be able to get that waived. But there's a whole list. If you received, I think, a Purple Heart, you can also have the funding fee waived. So I would imagine that's a good thing, of course. And so, you know, the next thing that a lot of people, you know, are asking questions about is what is the VA loan limit? And so with the VA loan, the great thing about it is that there is no limit as far as on how much you can qualify or what the loan limit is for the VA loan. So that's pretty cool. So what that means is that if you're qualified for $1 million, guess what? You can get $1 million VA loan, okay? And so that's a pretty cool thing. And that's $1 million with no down payment. That's pretty awesome. So that's one thing on there. And then essentially, the other thing that people ask, and I'm just going through a list of questions and making sure I get all the questions, because like I said, we're going to go into everything on here. So one of the things people also ask is, can you get a VA home loan if you already have one out? Okay, so what that means is that if you have a VA loan, can you get another one? And the answer to the question is yes. So even though you might have a VA loan out, depending on your eligibility, which we're going to talk about how you can check that, but depending on your eligibility, you may qualify to have another one come out later. So you can do two. There is a catch with that because the VA will only provide that loan if you are owner occupied. So what that means is that if you have a VA loan out, you're going to have to occupy the new home that you're getting the VA loan for. Okay. And so that's one thing on there. And then of course, you know, you have to be able to debt qualify, which means you have to qualify for the VA loan that you have plus the new one. Okay. So there's going to be some eligibility requirements on there. And then you also have to figure out the other thing is what your eligibility is, which is your eligibility is going to be tied to, or you can find out your eligibility in the certificate of eligibility. So many lenders refer to it as a COE. And so how do you get that COE? Once again, there's going to be a link down below. I'm going to put all the links in the comment section to where you can actually pull it up for yourself and you can request your certification of eligibility. And so you can find that there. Other than that, you know, as far as documentation, you know, what documents do you need for a VA loan? The only other documentations that are going to be different than a regular loan is going to be your your certificate of eligibility. So that's a COE, which I'll have the video for you to pull that up. And then the only other one is going to be, you may need your DD 214, which will also be in the link that you can pull up. And then if you're current military, rather than pay stubs, you're going to need your LES statement. Okay. And so other than that, it's the same documents, W-2s, pay stubs, bank statements, for instance, like cash to close, anything like that. But those items are going to be the same. There's only a couple additional ones for the VA that are specific to the VA that you'll need. Okay. And so the other thing is, a lot of people want to talk about, and one of the things that and even just in conversation with like realtors and lenders, and you know, a lot of people talk about the appraisal, a VA appraisal, and how difficult or more there's a thought out there that is more how can I put it? There's more to it, to a VA appraisal versus conventional, that they may, you know, call out different repairs and stuff like that. So yes, it's a good thing that they want to make sure that the home, when you get a VA appraisal, it's going to be slightly different than a conventional or even like a FHA appraisal, because they're doing the home for a veteran. So they want to make sure that the home is sufficient for the veteran, which is a beautiful thing and it's a good thing. Now, what a lot of people and a lot of sellers, even, you know, concerns about accepting a VA, offer, Sellers are like, well, I don't want to have to repair this and that. And what about, there's a pest inspection. What if they call this to be repaired and all this other stuff? But I think that we're doing a disservice not only to the veteran, but you could possibly be doing a disservice to yourself as a seller if you're thinking about not accepting an offer based upon it being a VA. So the reason why is because a VA is not only are they a veteran, they serve the country, but the other thing about it is that the loan product itself is that most lenders have a very easy time doing a VA loan, and it's a great offer to accept, besides the fact of being able to help a veteran out. But it's also a great product because when you're looking at appraisal, right? And I want to get into this because yes, they may be a little more into it and they may call out different things on the home to make sure the home is fit for the veteran, which is a good thing. But what a lot of people don't know is that the sellers don't have to pay for all the repairs. So if a VA appraiser comes in and says, hey, the paint's peeling or whatever the case is, this needs to be done. Or maybe there is some pest repairs that, some that came back from the pest inspection, which we're gonna talk about because with the VA, you have to have a pest inspection. Here in California. I can't speak on other states, but here in California, you got to have a pest inspection done as well. So what does that mean is that sometimes, so if the appraiser comes back and they say this has to be done, this repair has to be done in order for the VA to sign off on it. Well, here's the thing. You as the seller don't have to pay all of those repairs. The buyer can also, if they want that home, they have the choice to say, hey, we can pay this. So that's another reason why you don't want to just shy away from it just for that purpose. You want to make sure that you understand that the buyer can pay this, as well as, yes, as a seller, you may be asked to pay for some of the repairs, but as a buyer, the buyer has that option too. And so one of the things that a lot of people are not aware of, even when it comes to VA and concessions, and when we say concessions, almost like seller credits, the seller can pay for stuff, they can actually provide up to 4% for the veteran. So 4% of the loan amount as a concession or as a seller credit, the seller can provide that for them. And so that's also not only going to help the buyer out, but it could possibly help the seller close. And, let's say the buyer needs pay for some of those repairs, that can help them out there too. But the other thing, when we get into inspections and we're talking about appraisal, so yes, you have to have a pest inspection. But what's great here in California, like I said, is where, one of the things about pest inspection is that, number one, the buyer can pay their own inspection. So as the seller, you don't have to worry about that. Like, oh, they have this that has to be done. The buyer is going to pay for that. As the buyer, yes, you do pay for your pest inspection. And what draws a lot of people back from accepting a VA offer that I want to clarify, is that with the pest inspection, there is a clearance on it that says, hey, there might be damage to it. And so they, some people say, oh, well, if there's damage, if there's pest, damage, that it has to be done, termite, whatever the case is. That's not necessarily true. So what I mean by that is there's a form. It's the, the clearance form. It's the NPMA 33 form. So even if the pest inspection doesn't, there's a section on there, section 1 and 2. Even if it doesn't clear, you can get this form. And what this form does that will allow the VA to sign off on the loan, this form will say, hey, there's no active pest. And so with the pest inspection, a lot of people think, oh my gosh, if it shows this has to be done before we can close on the loan. Well, with this form, as long as the inspector, whoever came out to do the pest inspection, signs off on this form, says there's no active infestation, then guess what? The VA will still close the loan. So that's something that a lot of people don't know. that you can take advantage of. And once again, that's another reason why you should really look at taking advantage of a VA loan, and why even as a seller, why I'd even be for even taking that offer as well. Now, as a veteran, here's something that a lot of people don't know as well. So one of the things when we talk about alteration and repairs, so this is why I love this part and I get really excited for this part. So this is pretty awesome. So as a veteran, do you know that you can actually purchase the home and finance the costs to repair the home or to do updates to it as a veteran? So we're talking 100% financing, nothing out of your pocket, okay? So nothing, no down payment, and you can actually repair or alter the home. Now, granted, yes, there are some stipulations as far as like structurally changing, the foundation. Some of those things are not on there, but what is on there is, for example, repairs that need to be done. You can finance the cost of that in there. If you're looking at, for example, even the roof, I want to say the roof and other repairs that have to be done on there, you can finance and get that done. So alteration and repairs can be included in a VA loan. So a lot of people don't know that, and even like realtors aren't aware that, yes, if you have a home, you don't have to now, that opens the door to even different homes that you can look at, right? Because if we're looking at a home and you say, oh, well, it needs this, it needs that. Well, as a veteran, you can even include that. And there's some options for non-veterans, but we're only talking about VA home loans today. So that's one thing to definitely take a look at. And that, for example, even in the middle of a transaction, if you're going through in the house, you're having trouble with the house and you're a veteran, you're like, oh, well, this has to be done. This has to be done. I can't afford it. Well, there's an option that you can finance what needs to be done in the home and get your deal done. So that's a pretty amazing thing on there. And even with construction, we're talking about even foundation can be included on there. Floors, plumbing, electrical, HVAC systems. So these are all great things that, a lot of people look at a home. Sometimes you walk in and you're like, oh no, I don't want to do this or that. These are some options for you, especially as a veteran. Now, the other thing is construction loan. So what that means is that as a veteran, do you know that you can actually do a construction loan? So what that means is that if you have a property, let's say you want to buy the land and you want to build a home on that land. So you can actually get the land, finance the cost of building a home on that land with the VA loan. Now, granted, yes, you do have to find a lender that will do a VA construction loan, but the VA, the Veterans Affairs, they offer this loan. So you just got to find the right lender, the right person to work with, and they are able to get that done for you. So that's a pretty cool thing to be aware of. Interest rates on a VA loan as well, even construction otherwise, are pretty competitive. So that's also another reason why, if you have a veteran, if you know a veteran, if there's anyone out there, you're like, hey, share it, comment, look, share it with them, add them, do whatever you need to do to get this in front of them, because a lot of people just don't know those options that are out there for them. All right. Now, the last few things I'm going to cover, which is a popular topic right now, which is assumption loans, especially here in California. A lot of people have been talking, and there's a lot of terms out there. Everyone's been talking about, can I assume the loan, assumption loans? How does that work? What is an assumption loan? So yes, a VA loan can be assumed. Okay, so what does that mean? So for example, if I'm a veteran, I have this home and I've got a great rate at 2%. There's only $200,000 left, $200,000 loan left on the home. You as a buyer, you can come in and assume that $200,000 at 3% rate that I have, okay? As me being the seller, you being the buyer, you can assume that loan. So you're taking over this loan. Now, the VA, what makes it really great is that VA can be assumable. So there's advantages for not only the buyer if you're a veteran, not only the seller, but if the seller is a veteran and they have a VA loan, you can assume that loan from them. Now, how to do that? You are first going to have to get it approved with the current lender. So whoever the current service provider is of that VA loan, they have to authorize it. You, of course, will have to be qualified for the $200,000 that I have left. So if you don't qualify for the $200,000, you're not going to be able to do it. You have to qualify for the $200,000. But here's what's pretty great. So as a veteran, okay, as a veteran, the worry is, what do I do? Because how does that affect my eligibility? So if I'm a VA, let's say I'm a veteran, and I have this loan and somebody else wants to assume it because the loan won't be paid off, can I go get another loan? Yes, you can. You can actually approach them and have your eligibility renewed. You can approach the VA and ask them to have your eligibility renewed in the event that somebody else has assumed your loan. So that's a pretty cool thing, right? And a lot of people don't know that. So you pretty much will have to check with them to have that done. You can substitute. And as a VA, if as a buyer now, let's flip it. So as a buyer, you can actually approach the VA and now you can assume that loan from them. Now, one of the other little things that when we're talking about assuming that people aren't thinking and, how to, open up some opportunities, okay? So I have this loan. I'm a veteran. Let's just say I'm a veteran. I have a loan, $200,000 on the loan, but I want to sell you the home for $300,000, okay? So what that means is that I can actually qualify to where you can buy the home from me and I pull extra cash out of that home and you assume the loan, okay? So it's a pretty unique feature that, that is able to get done with the VA loan. Like I said, you're gonna have to talk with that lender. You're gonna have to get approved and walk them through that process of doing that. But just because you let someone assume your loan, you still have the option of getting some cash out of that property. So that's a pretty big benefit that you're able to do. Okay, so you will have to work with that service provider to make sure you get approved for that. But essentially, it's a pretty unique feature. And even for those who have cash, it's always good that as a buyer, those are the type of questions in this market in California. Those are the type of questions that you and your agent should be talking with the other agent about. Like, hey, what kind of loan do they currently have? Are they open to us assuming the loan? And so if you assume it, all that simply means is that even if you have some cash, that could be an attractive offer for a seller. If you have some cash to make up the difference, they have $200,000 on the home, and let's say you have $80,000 and you offer this to them, then the seller may be, depending on, how much equity is in the home, whatever the case is, but the option is available to you that we have to start thinking on these terms, because now it affects as far as affordability. You can afford a home, a lot more easier at 3.5% versus, 6-7%. Your affordability goes up. So that's always something to think about. But like I said, these are some great options. The VA loan is a wonderful thing because number one, like I said, I think the high points, of course, is the fact that 100% financing. And with, if you're able to negotiate a seller credit as a veteran, as a buyer, if you're able to negotiate a seller credit, to cover your closing costs, you're talking about walking into a home loan. You're talking about walking into a home with no closing and very minimum funds out of your pocket. All right. So once again, I know it's a lot of information, but listen, I'm going to put all those links in the comment. Hit me up if you have any other questions, but the VA loan program is a very, very great product. And if you know any veterans out there, send them this link, share with them, but definitely have them get approved for a home loan, because it's a great option to go if they've served our country and if they're eligible. All right, until next time.